He had boarded the train thinking it was just another late-night ride back home, exhausted from a long day at work and barely noticing the old, rusted engine waiting at the platform. But the moment he stepped onto the car, something felt off. The air inside was colder than outside, heavy and thick, and the smell of damp wood mixed with something metallic made his stomach churn. Yet he shrugged it off, telling himself that old trains always had a strange smell. So he found a seat near the window and settled in, hoping for a quiet journey. But as the train slowly started moving, the lights flickered intermittently, casting long, distorted shadows across the empty carriage, and he noticed that the other passengers were few, and all of them sat silently, faces pale and eyes fixed straight ahead, some with strange expressions that made his skin crawl. Yet he tried to ignore them and looked outside. But the landscape that passed by was not familiar. It wasn't the usual city outskirts. Instead, trees bent unnaturally, fog hugged the ground thickly, and twisted shadows danced in the distance as if they were moving with the train. Then the intercom crackled with a static-filled announcement that made him jump, a garbled, low voice, muttering something in a language he didn't recognize. And when he looked back at the passengers, they were all staring at him, now not with human eyes, but hollow black voids that seemed to pull at his soul. And a cold chill ran down his spine as he realized the train was moving far too fast for the route he had intended to take. Desperate, he tried to get up and check the next carriage. But the floorboards groaned under his feet in unnatural ways, and when he opened the door, the corridor stretched endlessly, far longer than a normal train, twisting and turning impossibly, as if the train had no end and the walls themselves were bending, pulsating slowly like a living organism. He stumbled into another car and saw a figure sitting silently on the opposite bench, tall, cloaked in black face hidden under a hood, and a faint whisper echoed in his ears, soft but chilling. "You shouldn't be here." His heart pounded, and he ran to the next door, only to find that the windows now showed landscapes that should not exist, burning forests, rivers of black water, and skies filled with dark swirling clouds, all moving in impossible directions, as if reality itself had warped around the train. Every attempt to exit failed. Doors slammed shut, handles wouldn't budge, and the lights flickered violently, making shadows leap across the walls like hands trying to grab him. He tried to call for help on his phone, but there was no signal, nothing. And then the intercom whispered his name in the same cold voice from before, making him collapse to his knees in terror, shaking uncontrollably. He realized that time inside the train did not flow normally. The journey seemed to stretch for hours. Yet outside, the world looked frozen, as if he had left reality behind. Figures began to appear in the fog outside the windows, pale, gaunt faces pressed against the glass, screaming silently, mouths opening and closing eyes wide in horror, and the train itself seemed to respond to them, speeding up whenever. He tried to breathe, slowing when he stopped a living entity feeding on fear. At one point, he found a journal lying on a bench, pages filled with names of people who had boarded the train before him, all with dates of disappearance, and as he flipped through, he noticed one name repeated over and over, his own. He panicked, running through the corridors, but every car was identical, with the same flickering lights, the same hollow-eyed passengers, the same oppressive darkness pressing in from all sides. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, now forming words he could barely understand. Stay, forever, join us. The train never stops. He realized then that leaving was impossible. The train existed between worlds, a cursed vessel feeding on lost souls. And every moment he remained inside, he felt his sense of self slipping, like invisible hands were pulling at his memories, erasing pieces of who he was. Then, the figure in black appeared again, standing directly in the aisle, pointing to a small hatch in the ceiling, a possible escape. Heart racing, he climbed, praying it wasn't a trap. And when he emerged onto the roof, the train was no longer connected to tracks. It floated above a void of swirling mist and shadow, screaming figures reaching up from below, clawing at the wheels. He barely held on, crawling along the slick metal, when suddenly a hand grabbed his ankle. Cold, wet, and impossibly strong, and he fell into the fog below, screaming, only to wake moments later in the normal train station, alone, no trace of the haunted train. The engine gone, as if it had never existed, but when he looked down at his hand, he saw black smudges that refused to wash off, and a small ticket stub in his pocket with a single word scrawled in blood-red ink. Next stop? Forever. From that day on, every time he hears a train whistle in the distance, he freezes, terrified, knowing that somewhere, deep in the fog, the haunted train still waits for the next passenger. And he can never truly escape the memory of the journey he barely survived.